Hello and welcome to Magical Journey. I am your host, Daniel Coon. And today we have part two of Lyria's story of dealing with poltergeist activity and hauntings. But before we get to that, I want to go over some things with you really quickly about my stuff, okay? So, first of all, any and all things Magical Journey that you want to find out about, social media, guest appearances, all kinds of stuff like that. There's a new line of merch that I've got out. Can be found on magicaljourney.com website. So bookmark that, don't forget it, and join often on there because I do update that frequently. Also on Facebook, there's Magical Journey, the page. Not a bad place to go to find out what's coming up or what's being posted currently on this channel, and also the Magical Journey group, which you not only get what's happening currently, but you also get some good extras such as photographs, articles related to current postings, and of course you get to meet some of the people that are my supporters, which is really a good thing. Also, along that lines, we also have the Paranormal Files page, which again, a good place to find out where all of the current postings, what's going on as far as what episode we're on, what kind of information you're going to get on there. The other areas, platforms that I am on currently, X, Insta, and TikTok. All good places to join me at. On TikTok is kind of a behind the scenes and a bit of a vlog about my podcasting experience and what's going on behind the scenes with Magical Journey. So that's always a good thing to get involved with and check out and follow and like and share and all that kind of happy stuff. Okay, so today we are going to do part two of Lyria's experience with the haunting that she has had for pretty much ever. So, without further ado, I am going to bring Lyria to the stage. And hello.
Hi. How are you? Thank you for having me back.
Well, thank you for coming back. I'm doing fairly well today. How are you doing?
It's been it's been a crazy week.
For everybody.
It has
For
been
everybody.
like I don't know if it's like with like the new retrograde or whatever. I'm good.
Probably.
I'm good.
Probably.
I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, retrograde.
Right?
So last week we kind of ended in a place where like you were in a kind of a lull, kind of, I guess.
Yeah. So um do you want me like to recap like really fast like where
Sure.
we were or well I have a son who's 19, and when he was born, like a lot of crazy stuff started happening around our family and within our home. Um, a lot of like paranormal activity, and we really weren't sure what it was, and we were very much a skeptical family when it all started. Um, and then as time went on, we realized like, hey, this is really something. And then it became like a scary situation. And at first we thought it was our home and we would move and it would follow us, and then we realized it was we our biggest fear was it was haunting our son, and it kind of turned out that it was right. um but we got to a point where um somebody uh was able to, I mean, they call like, I hate to say trap it, but that's, I mean, what she did. Um, it sounds cheesy. It sounds like I've watched too many episodes of Supernatural, like when I say it out loud. Um, but but yeah, that's how it ended. And then things like quieted down for a while. But like the psychic and the person who helped us to find peace within our home, when I was like telling her about how I was sharing my story, with fabulous magical journey. Um,
Thank you.
she was like, "Oh, like I actually have the notes from the reading when I first met you."
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Oh, okay." And so she shared it with me of her read on the spirit that she captured that night, like her first feeling of it, uh, filled with malintent, which that's that's a nice note on annotation number one. um, let's see, filled with malintent. Uh, oh, has it's her handwriting. Sorry. Oh, has an affinity for children, but not in a good way. She also puts the word that we would use to describe a person who hurts children, but I know
Mm,
other platforms you can't say that word, but we probably all get like understand what I'm saying. Um, feel feeling other children entities surrounding it, but not by will. Um, and she said wants her son for his collection. That was the one that like brought because I've never seen this, and we have maintained a friendship since this has happened. But she said that's just the feeling that she got, and that's the feeling that you felt when it was around. It was just nobody was. It just was a horrible, like a gross, like someone's always watching me. I mean, there was just it's impossible to get peace. When there's, I mean, it's an entity. It can go anywhere. So, um, so after that, things quieted down for quite a while. At this point, my son, he was about, I think he was like 3 or 4, and so this started like the moment he was born. It
mm,
wasn't like, it was like a scene from like a horror movie every single day, but um, it's more the little stuff every day that
mm,
like gets to you. You don't like I because at that point in time, who do you call to help you where you don't end up in a padded room?
right.
This was 20 years ago. I mean, it's not like, I mean, nowadays, I mean, now there's like confirmation that aliens exist. And so, I mean, if you think 20 years ago when all of this was new, like not every, paranormal group had an EVP or like no, not an EVP. I'm so sorry. An EMT reader. That was a big like, thing
Right.
like to have one. And so it was a really different time. And so as controversial as this psychic and her connection to like Lorraine Warren was, I mean, do I think everything is demonic? No. Entities are like people. You have some that are kind and loving, and you have some that are mean and callous and filled with malintent. And it's not really a black and white area, but I'm grateful to have had that experience with Lorraine and to at least have talked to her. And I'm really grateful for the connection with this friend who she's asked me to keep her name private, which I've just been referring to her as like the psychic. Because that's what she always refers to herself as too. She's like, it's the psychic, what do you want? And stuff. So things calmed down. So after like 4 years, it was nice to get a break. It was really nice to get a break. And I had a pretty big break. Let's see, from the age of 4 till when he was 4. Um, Now things tapered off bothering him. He still noticed, spirits, that we couldn't see, but he would be like, I remember one time when he was like 11, I was like doing some scrapbooking with like, I have a lot of old black and white photos, which are like my prized possessions of like my great grandparents, my great great grandparents, like things that are, those are precious to me. And I'm scrapbooking, and
Yeah.
I have all these different, pictures laid out of all this, family that, bless them, have like been, gone for, quite a while and stuff. And he walked by and he goes, "Oh, he goes, what's this?" And I said, "Oh, like I'm scrapbooking, like I'm finally scrapbooking all these black and white photos." And he goes, "Oh, that's cool." And he goes, "Oh, that's Jack. I like him." And he pointed to a picture. And I go, "Who?" I was like, "What?" I said, "How do you know who that is?" And he goes, "Oh, he comes and visits me like all the time." And I go, "Oh, like he does?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, mom. Like I know he's a ghost. It's okay." And he just like walked on with his little 11-year-old self and like played a video
Wow.
game. And so, but I'm also, when all this was happening and he would tell me he would see things, I learned from the very beginning not to tell him it's just his imagination.
Mhm.
Um, because see, this is just my opinion. Everyone can do what I just described my son doing. We all have the ability to do it. We as society, for generations upon generations, have been taught to teach our children that's your
Exactly.
imagination, those things don't
Mhm.
exist, you didn't really see that, like, oh, it's this, it's that, so I when I realized this was going on early on, I always taught him. I didn't teach him that. I didn't teach him, like, listen, if you say you saw it, like, point blank. And so I learned like he was special like pretty early on. Like
Mhm.
um and he's one of those kids where sometimes he would just sit and look at you and just stare into your eyes, and like you just knew he was like scanning your soul, like
Mhm.
to get his read on you. But he's the sweetest kid. Well, he's not a kid anymore. He's like a guy. He's like the sweetest guy because he's 19. Oh, time. Like I feel so old. Um, and so with him, even though like he was still having experiences like that, they weren't scary. They were,
Mhm.
oh, like, it's not a scary monster who's harboring like children entities, you know, and all that. Oh, speaking of children entities, Justin did come home with me. Um, and Justin is still around. The spirit, that he said his name was Justin and he couldn't leave because of the bad man. When all this, happened, I just said, you're more than welcome to come stay with me. And he has ever since. He loves to play with like Hot Wheels. I mean, he's not super active, but you can feel him. You feel a lot of like little like teehees like behind a corner, like a little kid would do, like kind of like the energy you feel like when he's
Right.
around. And then all of a sudden, like a Hot Wheel will go across the floor because I have like little kids still. Um, and so he's still around. So like I'm glad of anything. Like hopefully it brought him some peace. And I love. I don't mind being his mom. So even 20 years later, that's fine. I'll be his mom. Um, so with my son, things, it just he was having positive experiences, and I was, um, I was always reading on witchcraft and all of that. So then he kind of got interested in that with me, and not really necessarily to practice, but just to know his mom more. And so then we started talking about like psychic abilities and clairvoyance and stuff like that. And so that was like a fun experience, that we had. And we still talk about that stuff like today. And and he's just really cool and open about that stuff. And he has different opinions on things, than I do. But we both know he remembers everything.
Mhm.
Everything. He says he remembers being slapped. Um, and Oh yeah, because when he was being slapped, there's a note. There's an annotation in one of like the psychic's notes where I had mentioned that I heard my son say, "No, no, I don't want to do that." She said that the bad man was asking him to hurt me because we were outside cutting the ivy. I had shears. I had, garden tools and stuff like that. And he says he just remembers, he's like, Mom, it just wanted me to hurt you. And I just kept saying, like, I didn't want to. He goes, I remember that. He goes, I don't remember like specifics. He goes, but I remember like getting slapped. And he goes, I remember it was just a big, scary shadow that, it just felt horrible every time it was around. And so, but he hasn't felt anything like that since. And so I'm very, very glad about that. But yeah, but he remembers like, like the house that had a lot of activity where, cabinets would open and stuff like that. Like he really remembers a lot of that, more than I thought he probably would. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though he was cool, well, I decided. So okay, so I decided to move to like a historic part of our city. That was smart move number one. No, no. So I guess he grew up, like me and his father separated, and we both moved on, and like he had a wife and I have a husband, and I've had like two more children, like since then. They're 8 and 10. They see family members, they see people, but it's nothing like it, was with my oldest son. But so my now husband and I just had our son, and our daughter was a toddler. And so we were like, yeah, like we need to get a bigger place. Like we had like a small little house, and we're like, well, like there's this house for rent. Because my husband's like from El Salvador, he's Spanish. And so he he said, oh, I have this friend, she's renting this house. And she said she's always having a hard time like finding like good renters, like good, decent people that like stick around. And I said, oh, okay. And then he goes, well, we're gonna go look at this house. Now this house is pretty. It is very pretty. It's been added to. It has like 5 bedrooms.
Wow.
Like it has like a really big bathroom. I mean, it's older. I mean, it's old. I mean, it needs to be updated. It has like ugly wood paneling on the walls, and like gross carpet in like the rooms that have carpets. But it just was a really cool house. Like it had like 3 bedrooms like on the main level, then it had like 2 bedrooms upstairs where like people had added an addition. It had like a fancy staircase, and then it had like a hidden staircase like through the kitchen. You could go like it was just a really cool. I had never lived in a place like this, and she wanted like cheap rent. So we're like, yes, like, we'll take it. Like it has plenty of room for like our family to grow and for these kids to grow. And of course there was this is what sold me, Daniel. This is what sold me. There was this one room, and I'm like, it was like off like the back of the house, and it was like this one room had big picture windows, and you could see into the yard. It's a big yard. It has lots of trees, and there's like rose bushes. And my first thought was, we're living here. This is the perfect magic room for me. That I wanted, like we were living there. Like at that point, I didn't care how much she wanted. So I'm like going through numbers in my head, like, hey, if she says this, we're gonna see if I can ask for that. And then when she told us how much she wanted, I mean, it was cheap. It was cheap for a 5-bedroom house. So we're like, okay. So we move in. It's fine. We don't even have enough furniture to fill this place, right? Wow. So it's just big open space everywhere. And we have like a kitchen table and some chairs, and our beds. That's like it. Because we had a very, very small, like 1 bedroom home that like we were
Oh
just
yeah.
living in temporarily um because we were both like living separately and we decided like to move in together, like my
Mhm.
husband and I. And so, he had lived there by himself and it's like a 1 room, like a little, it was like a shack. It wasn't even a house. It was like a hut. So I'm excited. I'm like, ooh, like I have all these ideas for decorating. And I'm like, oh, and she said we could paint. She said we could like change carpet. And I'm like, I am all about this house. So I felt that way for like 2 weeks. And then I was like, like some strange things started happening. Now, mind you, I have been through this before,
Mhm.
but what people like don't realize is when you legitimately go through something like that, it is traumatic. I mean, it is
It can be.
hard on every level. You're physically exhausted, you're emotionally exhausted, you think you're going crazy. And then, like I said, at that point, I was so blessed and so lucky to have found the people who helped me. I really, really am. Because, like I mentioned before, who were you going to call to come and help you?
Right.
Like, who were you going to call? Like, I feel like I'm going to get hurt in my own home. Who's going to come and save me from Casper? Like, there's nobody. Ghostbusters ain't real. I wish. Like, you know, wouldn't that be so? I
Seriously.
mean, I'm sure now there probably is somewhere, but like back then, so I was just really, really lucky. So when it's like it's so traumatic that like even though I went through that for like a good like 4.5 years, it's
Mhm.
almost like you block it out. Like you remember,
Right.
like I can talk about it, but I don't like think about it all the time, you know? Um and so little things started happening and like again, as someone who went through it, I like didn't even put two and two together. Like it's starting again. I'm just like, it's an old house. We're new
Mhm.
people. Like it's feeling us out. We're feeling it out.
Mhm.
Like it's fine. Like, because it wasn't anything bad, wasn't anything scary at first. Um, so we're probably like, okay, we didn't even live there a year. It was not even a year because it's so funny. The house I live in now is across the street from the house I'm talking about right
Right.
now.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah. Um uh and so but yeah, I mean we didn't even live there a year. Um cuz first couple weeks it was great, like no problem, and then like after that like it just had like an icky feeling.
Mm.
Um Like the second my husband would come home, I mean, we're fighting, we're yelling, we're screaming, and it was just it. I mean, and we don't even know and we wouldn't even know like what we were mad about. Like if he didn't start it, I would start it, and if I didn't start it, he would start it. And like I'm especially not one to start anything.
Mhm.
Like even when I'm mad, like I just stay quiet. I just keep my mouth shut. I go think about things and then I'll come back and be like, "Hey, that really made me mad." And like this is, how we're going to talk about it. um it was just uncomfortable. I mean, it just like eternally restless.
Mhm.
That is how you felt in this house. Like
Wow.
you just couldn't put your finger on it. It was just, but then I'm like, okay, like it's a big empty space. And it's like when I would hear things, I'm like, it's a big house. Like it's a big house. It's old. I mean, who knows what kind of like plumbing it has, like really, So like all these things I kind of was just chalking up to antiquity.
Mhm.
Because like this, like I said, this house, this whole neighborhood is part of a historical district in Kansas City. It's part of like a, what is that called? Okay, I'm probably going to say the word wrong. Regentrification. The gentrification. Do you know what that
Hmm.
means? Yeah, am I
Yeah,
saying it right? I'm not even sure if I'm saying it
I think so.
right.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's gentrification and not gen. I think it's just gentrification, which means they're taking the hood and they're flipping it to like make it more like the suburbs and get bougie people to come live here.
Right.
That's like what it is. um but it's actually a really beautiful part of our city. I love it here. I mean, like it's I don't know, it's like old school around here. Neighbors help
Hmm.
neighbors. It's nice. Um, but like at a hardwood floors, there was just a couple of the bedrooms that were carpeted, but for the most part, it's hardwood floors. So like anybody walking anywhere, you'd hear it like probably 10 times louder than it really was. Um, well, because we don't have a lot of furniture, because
Right.
like we just had this little tiny hut we were living in, so like everything's open, and so there's no buffers for the noise. So like if kids are like the kids were yelling or crying, I mean it was like someone put like a surround down sound theater in
Hmm.
there. It would just be like so loud. Which okay, I didn't care because like the floors were beautiful. They were like the original floors. like
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm like such a home decor and architecture nut. Like so that just made me love this house like even more.
Hmm.
But again, just like all the horror movies ever made. Why do you have this big nice house so cheap?
Right.
Because it's haunted AF. That is why. So this is also a good example of people being haunted versus a
Hmm.
place being haunted. My son, I feel like, was haunted because
Hmm.
it followed us to follow him. This particular situation, that house is haunted and is still haunted and sits empty and has sat empty. Right now, I think it's probably sitting at about a year, almost 2 years. It's sat empty. Other people have come and gone. No one lasts more than 6 months.
Hmm.
And that's how
Wow.
long we lasted. I think we lasted 8, but the last 2 months we really weren't staying there. We were kind of, oh, let's go stay at grandma's house for a little bit, kids. Like, let's go spend the weekend there. Oh, let's go spend a couple days here at Aunt whoever's house. So the noises, that's what started it. I would hear like really loud footsteps, like someone had boots,
Mm.
like just running across like the main like living area.
Right.
Um, cause okay, it was a really weird layout, and even though it was 5 bedrooms, there was more rooms. Like it wasn't just bedrooms.
Right.
It had a really big living room. It had a formal living room. It had a space to do like a casual like family room, and then it
Hmm.
had a dining room, and then it had a really tiny kitchen, but everything else, was big and empty. Um, so I would hear like these boots like running across like this empty formal dining or formal living room area, and but nobody's home. It's like it's me and these 2 toddlers, and so then I'm like, well, they must have ran in there and come back, because especially if they had shoes on, I mean it was loud. So again, I chalk it up to like logic. Oh, it's just really loud because there's no noise buffers and all that. So then things would started going missing.
Mm.
Okay, so like at first I'm like, okay, yes, we just moved, but we literally moved in with almost nothing. I mean, like we had clothes. I had maybe like a couple of those Rubbermaid, like the big totes of like memorabilia things, and like maybe one of those totes with like kid toys. And that was
Hmm.
about it. And then we just had like our clothes, and we had like our bed, the uh the kids had like their beds, like their crib, like a crib, and like she had like a toddler bed, and then a kitchen table with like 2 chairs. That's all we had. So
Right.
when something goes missing, like you notice it. So my husband would blame me for like, oh, like you took this picture and you didn't put it back. And I would be like, well, no, like, why would I touch it? And then I, was like, hey, like, you took like my earrings and like, like quit jacking my earrings, like quit wearing them yourself. And then because he has his ears pierced, he still does that too, by the way. So I had every right. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. I had every right to suspect him, especially for those, because if I have diamond earrings, he's like, oh, this diamond stud looks good in my ear, and he probably would have jacked it. I think he still did, and he just blamed what was going on at the time. That's just me. Anyway. So I'm like, oh, like, quit jacking my earrings. And he's like, no, like, I really promise you, like, I really didn't take these earrings. So it was like little things like that. So they would go missing, and then like it would be like 2-3 weeks later, and all of a sudden you would hear something like just like a noise in the room, right? And it would always be like, well, it depended on what thing went missing. Because you would hear this noise, and all of a sudden you would look like, what was that noise? And this item that's been missing for 2 weeks that we're fighting each other over will all of a sudden reappear. Like someone just like threw it in the room.
Wow.
Because that's what it would sound like. Like it was like stuff was being thrown, but like little stuff, like nothing big. And then you would look, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like that necklace we fought about for like a month ago, and we've been fighting about ever since because it went missing. And there's no reason for it to be over there, and there's nobody to put it over there because like the kids were little. My son, I have like my youngest son, he was a newborn. We like moved in here. I think he was like 2 months old. He didn't do it. And like my toddler, I mean, like my daughter, she was 2, almost 2, but like everything like little like that was put up where she couldn't get it, and she couldn't be a monkey and climb up to it. Yeah. So it was just like really weird like that. And then so the house itself like sits really high up on a hill, right? So like when you like come down the street, like you're walking down the sidewalk by this big house, it's like up on a hill. So you come down the sidewalk, and like it goes like this, and it's on the corner, but there's like this big huge cement like retaining wall, and then the wall goes all the way around the corner and into the front, and then it opens up, and then you have stairs. You have to go up like 20 stairs just to get to the front door. It's like really annoying. So then when you're in the house, you're way up high, and you can see over like 3-4 blocks, right? Especially like you can see for a couple blocks, like it's like it's really high up. So it had a creepy basement. I never went down there. I'm not even sure what was down there. I honestly never went down there. I was like, nope. Like, well, one, it was dirty. It was like my lungs would probably collapse from all the black mold that's down there. Because again, this is an old house, and it had sat empty for a hot minute before we went in there.
Right.
Because really I really think what woke it up, in my opinion, is it was cool for 2 weeks, right? Well, after like the first 2 weeks of us being there, I like went on like a deep clean dive. Like I had like rubber gloves, bucket of bleach. I was scrubbing down walls, like scrubbing down. Because like when we had moved in, we kind of like, it was very rushed because she was like, hey, you want to move in? It's this cheap. And we're like, sure. I mean, we literally moved in that night. Like that very night, we just, okay, we're living here, So, I think that's what woke it up, is me cleaning and kind of disrupting the stagnant energy that had been used to like, it's like I'm asking Sheldon Cooper to move from his spot, like I think that's what did it, and why we kind of had a little bit of a reprieve at first. Okay, so when we were sitting on, so the house is on this hill, and it has like these really tall windows. Like I don't really know that much about windows, but like like on older houses, the windows like they're kind of low to the floor, but they're really tall and narrow. And
Yeah.
like if you want to open it, like you push it up, and then if you want to close it, you have to like push it up and push it down. It's like the
Yeah.
really old windows with like the locks. Okay, I love the locks where they go like this, like to lock
Right.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the type of windows this house had. Okay, now being that like we like rushed moved in there, right? Okay, and I'm not working because I have like two babies at home, and my husband, God bless him, he's such a hard worker. Listen, he can be like a DICK sometimes, but he is such a hard worker. He is. He works two jobs so I can stay home and take care of my mom who moved in with us and the kids. Like I'm just saying, like shout out my boo. Um. So um. So like okay, it's gonna sound like so ghetto. We didn't have curtains. We had like no curtains. Well, we had curtains, but none of them really fit the windows because they're these like tall, like narrow windows, and we have like curtains that fit this little hut's windows. That was just normal, like modern, new, like newer windows.
Right.
So, okay, so there's no curtains. So at night, when you're sitting there and you just have like one little lamp on, so the neighbors don't see everything you're doing because you're up on a hill. So I would have like one little tiny like desk lamp that was really soft lighting, kind of like, like this color light I have on, now, but it was small. So that way I could still see if I wanted to be like not like where the kids were in the bedroom, asleep, like I would go in the living room or whatever. And but that way, like again, we have no curtains, and like even like really tall blankets, like we can't get up there far enough like to put, you
Right.
know, to cover anything up. So that way I'm not putting on a show for my neighbors. Because I mean you can see, I mean, like they're huge windows. Like you could easily see everyone just living their life like a movie in these windows. So um I noticed that like it looked like people were walking past my window on my porch. But like it didn't. I mean, what the image I saw, it to me, I thought it was on the outside. That's what it looked like somebody was outside. So, like okay, the first time it happened, it's dark, it's at night, I'm home alone, and I just explained what a gentrification was, how they're trying to like clean up the ghetto. So I mean, listen,
Mhm.
I'm safe, but it's not like, but really we're safe nowadays, honestly. But I live in an area that is not indifferent to like crime and violence and stuff. Like my little neighborhood, we're good. Like we all watch out for each other. We're safe. Like I don't hear like I'm not in the middle of a drive by, but you hear it from like the like I live on the north side. You hear it on the south side of
Mhm.
like our area. You hear gunshots and stuff, but I've never had to worry about that like here.
Right.
But I'm thinking from like how it looks and what I'm seeing, I'm thinking someone's on my porch because it was like it's like a big porch, has like a railing, um, really nice porch, like a good porch to put a rocking chair and sit and like watch, the neighborhood. So I go out there, nobody's out there, and nobody could run away fast enough from me going out there because, like I
Mhm.
said, you have to go down like 20 some steps to get to the sidewalk and the street. Um,
Mhm.
so um So I'm like, okay, well, like, it was probably just like maybe someone walking on a sidewalk, you know, and a car drove by and it just, I mean, I'm using every logical cell in my body to not, I think because I was traumatized, is to not take it to where eventually it went. Well, that's where it was, whether I wanted to admit it or not.
Right.
Um, So I went back inside, sat back down, didn't think anything of it. Well, the family room area, which was where we had like our TV and like our little love seat we bought from the thrift store, like stuff like that. Um, uh, I'm sitting there, and so like the windows behind, like behind me, are windows on the side of the house. So the side of the house is just the side of the house, and then that cement retaining wall. It's just a straight shot down to the sidewalk. All of a sudden, the same image of somebody walking across the window is now on the windows right here, like behind me.
Wow.
So, because something caught my eye and I looked, and it looked like three people were walking, just shadows, just walking right by my window. And I'm thinking, okay, no, no. So I look outside. I mean, obviously now no one's by my window unless they're like a superhero. I don't know at this point. That's for another podcast, another episode, another day. Who knows? I mean, who knows what it could be? But I'm like, there's nobody there. So then I'm like, okay, I'm still not taking it there. I'm still not willing to take it there. I'm like, has to be somebody walking on the sidewalk and a car, the lights, because the lights would just gleam across our home because we had no curtains. So I mean, there's no one on the sidewalk, and I'm like, okay, well, they're probably walked by, didn't. Again, I'm just trying to go on. So, and this is like when, like, this is probably like a good like month, 6 weeks in, and like this is when this, like, we're fighting about everything, we're losing stuff, it'll reappear like a week later, a month later sometimes. That happened throughout the whole time we were there. Like, things would just pop up, and like, oh, like, we thought about that 6 months ago. Like, look, whoever this ghost is had it. So, so then I'm still not taking it there. And my husband came home, and I said, hey, like, there's, okay, somebody was walking by the windows. I said, I don't know if they're walking by the windows. I don't know if they're walking on the sidewalk. I said, but it looked like somebody was by these windows. And I'm like, it looked like someone were by these windows. How could that be? And he was just like me. Has to be a reflection. Like, people were walking, whatever. So we didn't think anything of it. Well, the next night, again, I'm home alone. Kids are asleep. I've always waited up for him. That's just, I don't know. Not that, like, he asked me to. That's just I don't know. That's just what I do. I just, like, I feel better just waiting for him to come home, to go to sleep. So he doesn't get home until late. He still doesn't. I mean, it's usually a good like 1:30 before he walks, through the door. So, and it would always be about 9:00. Kids go to bed at 8. I would be there, relaxing, usually like, watching a movie or whatever, or cleaning up. And it's like 9:00 on the dot, something creepy would happen. I would start seeing the people walking by the windows again, right? And so now it's not just seeing them in the windows. Now it looks like they're walking across rooms, like empty, dark rooms that I'm not in, right? Because I'm, not trying to put on a show for my neighbors. When that happened, I put on a show for my neighbors. I had every light. After that night, I had every light on every night. Like, you don't want to see me walking around in my pajamas, then don't look in my window. Like, this light is staying on. Because then it was, they were walking across rooms, and like, even though it's a dark, pitch black room, like, these shadows, okay, I don't know how to describe it. They were shadows. They looked like shadows, but they weren't. Like, even though it's black on black, you can tell a difference and you could see them.
Right.
I don't know. Like, do you know what I mean? Have you ever experienced that? Like, I don't know how to just
Yeah, I
describe
get
it.
where you're going.
Yeah.
It.
So, like, even though I would refuse to look in those rooms, right? I could still feel them, like, like, you're looking. I just know they're walking, like, back and forth. I just know it. Freaks me out. So I'm like, okay. After that, every single light stayed on. I didn't care. Like, you didn't want to see it, don't look in my window. So uh there was a house next to us that sat empty. But it was always really well maintained. Like it had
Mm-hmm.
beautiful flowers that would attract like hundreds of butterflies. Like when the monarchs would come through, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know whatever this flower was. I mean, they just would swarm to this house. Like, and we loved going over there. I have so many videos of the kids' little like, and we're just surrounded by butterflies. It was really cool. Um, so one day, so like I said, empty, but like the daughter of like the guy who lived in this house, he was in a nursing home. She would come
Mm-hmm.
over like once a week and like mow the lawn and like make sure, everything's taken care of, and stuff like that. And so one day she was outside. Now this is probably like we only lived there, I think we lived there for like 7 months, to if I remember correctly. So this is like the halfway point, okay, of us living there. Things are starting to happen little bit by little bit, but we just the energy just felt horrible. Like
Mm-hmm.
we would fight and fight and fight, and like the second we would leave that house, we were fine. Like we were fine. We dreaded going home. Again, the feelings I had in the first, home that I had, when my eldest son, was being haunted. But again, I'm still not take I did not take it there until I saw the shadows walking across the room. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I was just not again. Like not again. It's like everything I had blocked out all of a sudden came like right back.
Mm-hmm.
So this woman was out there one day, and the kid, I took my daughter wanted to go outside, so we were outside, and I was talking to her, and she said, "Oh hey," she's like, "You've been living here for a while." I said, "Yeah, it's like we've been here like I think about like 4 months," and I said, "But I don't know how much longer I can do." And she goes, "Yeah," she goes, "Nobody lives there past 6 months." And I go, "Do you know why?" And I say, like, why? Like, why? I mean, like, it's an old house, but it's like decent. It's not like, it's not like the most horrible house you've ever seen. Like, it needs to be updated,
Right.
but a little like, TLC. It has a lot of potential. It's a really great house. And especially with a landlord who's like, hey, paint it, change, like do whatever you want to it, like treat it like it's yours. Like, okay. Now looking back, I think she said that in the hopes that we would stay.
Probably.
Because this is I mean, it's a nice property, but if you can't get someone to stay there past 6 months, you're not making any money off of it. If
Right.
that's what you're keeping it for. Um, so and I said, yeah, it's like, do you by chance like know why like why like people aren't staying, like why people move out? And then she's like, well, she goes, well, I've talked to a few of like the tenants that have lived here in the past, and she goes, but I don't know where she keeps finding these tenants, but I think they're all kind of crazy. And I go, oh really? Now she was a sweet, very sweet older woman. And so I'm so glad I didn't say what I thought was going on before like we got into this conversation. I think it was like divine intervention. And I go, oh really? And I was like, well, why do you say that? Like, what kind of crazy people did she have living here? And then she's like, I don't know. She's like, there's like 3 or 4 of them that moved out saying it was like haunted and there's ghosts and stuff. And I'm like internally, I'm just like, I was really hoping I was wrong. I was really hoping I was wrong. And I
Right.
said, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Well, did they like, like say like why they thought it was a ghost? Like what was going on? Like did they ever talk about it?" And she said, "Oh, she said like she's like this one lady, she was really crazy. I think she was a crackhead, which I mean, who knows if she was? I don't know. But this is just what this woman said. And she's kind of a crackhead, and she said, but she said people were coming out of the walls, but who would even think that up? She goes, why would a ghost come through a wall? And so I'm thinking, okay. So then I'm like trying to think back to the one time I watched those shadows, walk across the room. I'm thinking, did they come out of the wall? So I don't know, but she was saying like 3 or 4 of them talked about people coming out of the wall, people walking by the windows, um, And then she said something about, oh, and then she said, okay, she said one of them talked about they had like a huge rat infestation. Okay. So I'm like, ew, like that's gross. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know why she told me about the rat infestation, but I'm glad she did. Oh, because it was reason. Sorry. Okay, my undiagnosed adult ADD, I have named it Sheila. So Sheila, like, got us off track for a second, but now we're back. So, because it was the reason, I was like, why am I talking about this? Oh yeah, because she was telling me the reasons why people were moving. Okay, sorry. So, and she said there was a rat infestation. She said, oh yeah. She goes, she's like, this woman, she was really nice. She said the tenant was, the woman who was the tenant was really nice. That she woke up one day and her house, like, it was just like overrun by rats. She said you'd open a cabinet and you would see rats in there eating the food and stuff like that. And she said she just couldn't handle it, so she left. So she just moved out. She said, I don't even think she gave notice or anything. And she said she left a lot of her furniture here. They had to clean it out. Like she said, but she said they were everywhere. She said it was just like in a horror movie. Like she woke up and she's like, there's like, 4 or 5 of them in a room at a time. And she
Wow.
said she went in the basement. Like I said, I never went down there. And I'm so glad that I didn't. And she said she went down there and there was literally like 100 rats, like just running around
Yeah.
in the basement. And I'm like, oh, that's horrible. I'm like, oh, like that's so gross. So, and the reason I mention this and I make a note of it is because now, because again, this is, this was probably a good, 8 years ago, like almost
Mhm.
10. So, 8, 9 years. So, we know a lot more about hauntings and I call them symptoms of
Mhm.
hauntings. Well, an infestation can be one,
Mhm.
right? Because I didn't know about that until this happened, and I went down a rabbit hole of those theories. Um, I believe in those theories because 2 days later we woke up and our house had millions. Like I am not exaggerating. Or at least that's what it felt like, of roaches.
Yeah.
Millions. Like, remember how I said it had like the old ugly like wood paneling on the wall? Like you
Mhm.
would look at it and be like, why does it look like it's moving? Because it was.
Gross.
Yeah. So we spent thousands of dollars. Like we saved up and spent thousands of dollars having people come and like exterminate this house. We had the landlord herself pay thousands of dollars to different companies to come and exterminate this house. I mean, it was like someone just flipped a switch. Now listen, we live in a city. We live like, in the more, like it's like, considered the projects, the slums. Okay, it's not uncommon to see like one or two. Just like if you go to New York, even if you're like in a
Mhm.
penthouse somewhere, you can still see them.
Mhm.
That's just a part of city living. Because where I live in Kansas City, it's a metro city, and the historical district I live in, it's in the center of the city.
Mhm.
So it's not uncommon to see like one or two, especially in the winter, like when you have your heaters on, but nothing like this. Nothing.
Wow.
So we're still staying, okay? So like this went on for like a month. And just as soon as it started, is that's how it stopped.
Mm.
Like someone just flipped a switch and they all just disappeared. Now, it was by no means anything we had done. I have no explanation for it. But it was like they all disappeared, like just as like they had appeared, because like obviously we weren't staying there, like because it, I mean, who no. Oh, just thinking about it, it just puts my hair like on end because I'm not sleeping here. I'm not sleeping here and having them crawling on me. Like no, like when I'm asleep, nope. My kids ain't sleeping here. We ain't gonna be like that episode of Inside Edition or Dateline where like a bug went in my baby's ear and like had this big medical trauma. No, that's what I was afraid of. So like we weren't staying there. Who would want to? We weren't staying there at all. So, because we were practically moved out, because like all the little furniture that we did have, we threw it all away. Because I'm like, they're gonna be in it. Like, I don't want it. Our TVs, everything, like, it was all gone, all gone. And so, like we would come over and we'd check on the house and make sure like no one's breaking in, because like even though like we're not staying there, okay, like we don't want anything, like, I mean, we don't want to be liable for it. We're renting it. So we would come over like, almost every day and like check on it and stuff like that. Um, and that's how we found out like they had stopped, just like they started. I mean, honestly, there was not even like carcasses. Like, when you usually exterminate, you go back and there's like all their little dead bodies, everywhere. It was gone. Like, it was gone. We called the landlord. We're like, hey, like, did this exterminator finally work? Like, did you clean it up? Did they come back and clean it up? And she goes, no. Like, she goes, no, not at all. And so we don't know. I don't know. So we start staying there again, right? So this was like a month we didn't stay there. So then we went back. Okay, and this was like the last month we were there. 2 weeks went by, it was fine. Nothing was happening. There's no shadow people, there's no bugs, like, okay. Maybe that took care of it. Maybe whatever it was just decided to leave, like, because my psychic friend at the time, she was out of country. She was like in Europe. Because I think at that time, it was before Lorraine. Lorraine Warren died in 2019, right? Yeah, I think it was like 2019 when she passed away. Because where was she? I think she was with Lorraine Warren, like on some project, and like, but she was like in Europe, and then she was like traveling all across like America. So like she wasn't like available to help as much as she was like this first, go around. So I just put into play the things I had learned from the first go around, like how to take my power back, like, like announcing, like, hey, like I live here now. This is my house. Even if you feel like it's yours, it's just as much mine as it is yours. And just like, like putting my faith, in practice, and stuff like that. And so, like, I mean, it was unsettling and it was scary, but it was nothing compared to like what we had been to before. So, so 2 weeks, we're good again. And we're like, hey, like, I think this is going to work out. So then I'm like trying to get excited about all these plans I have for this house. Like, finally, everything's, feels good. Okay, like, let's get this started. Well, yeah, that wasn't going to happen. So the night we moved out, my husband just came home. It was a Friday night, but for some reason he got off work early. Thank whoever is up there that he did. Because if he didn't, I would have had to have gone through this completely by myself. So he came home early, and it's probably like 10:30 at night, and I was so excited he was home early. So like I had made dinner, like we were sitting there watching the movie. And like we're having a good time, and I just remember feeling so happy that I got to have some extra time with him, because like he works a lot, like he's hardly here. So like what little time we do get to spend together, we really try to take advantage of, just enjoying each other's company and stuff. So we had this nice dinner, we're watching a good movie. we have the lights on. Like, we have the lights on in the living room where we're sitting in the kitchen. Um, and so all of a sudden we hear, like, it sounds like someone has on army boots, and we just hear like
Mm.
someone's just running as fast as they can across the room. And he goes, "What the hell was that?" And I go, "See, like I told you, like, something's here." And I said, "We have to get out of here." I said, "I don't know. I can't do this again. I really can't." And like, thankfully, he's never been skeptical about that stuff. He's always believed me in the things like that I had shared with him, that I had experienced, like with my eldest son.
Mm.
Um, ooh, I would love, you should talk to him. We're gonna have you talk to him one day. He has stories from his home country that
Mm.
are very interesting. They're just interesting. Like, they're not necessarily scary, but they're just really, like, they're just interesting. Like, you'll two have to, we'll have to get you two, like, to talk. Um, so I said, I told you, I said, there's something here. I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't, I said, I think they're just like, this is my house and you can't have it. Like, that's just a feeling like I had. Like, this is my house, you can't have it. Not like here, um, if like whatever, there's something here, but it's not mean. It's really nice. Like, I think
Mm.
it likes having us here because I love this house even more than that other house. That when I was like, oh yeah, like I see this as my magic room and I'm moving in here. Like, I loved this place even more so.
Mm.
Like, here, whatever is here, it is their house. And I recognize it's their house. This is an old family home. This was their home.
Mm.
But like, it's like we have a mutual respect for each other. Like, I'm cool with you being here if you're cool with me being here, and we can just live, you know, like, peacefully. And we do, and they help me find lost things. So
Right.
like, if I lose something, they're usually the one to find them. So I'm always like, ooh, like, shout out, like, ooh, love you, you know, and stuff like that. So like, we're cool here. Um, so I was just like, I'm telling you, like, there's some, I kept telling him, because he was like, well, and he's trying to go through all the logical explanations. Now, he has seen stuff in this home, but not like I have,
Mm.
because I'm I I was there all the time. Like,
Mm.
I mean, like, even now I'm home the majority, like, of the time. Um if I'm not, I'm either dropping off or picking up from school. That's about it. Or going to the grocery store, like mom stuff. Um and I said, this is the stuff that's been happening. And he goes, well, it has to be this, it has to be that. And I'm like, we just need to, like, come to the realization that something is here and it doesn't really like us here. And as soon as I said that, I thought it was an earthquake. Okay.
Wow.
When I first felt it, because like, we're sitting there and we're just continuing, like, eating our meal, even though, like, we're talking about it. I felt it in my feet first. I felt it on the floor. I felt it on the floor. I could have sworn it was an earthquake,
Mm.
right? I mean, even though, like, we don't really get them here in, like, in Kansas City, we can feel aftershocks, like earthquakes that happen in Oklahoma. We usually have them here because, like, ripple effect, like, it's just an aftershock that, like,
Mm.
spreads out. Um, so that's like, I mean, that's how I know what one feels like, right? And so that's what I thought, like, was happening. I mean, but ones we felt here, they're little,
Mm.
like, you can sleep through them. Like, if you weren't awake, like, no one's gonna, like, really think you went through it, like, because no one feels it, until the news says something. Um, so it started off little, and then it just got worse, and like, I I felt like our whole house was shaking,
Mm.
right? Because that's how strong the vibration felt under my feet. And then by the look on my husband's face, I could tell, like, he felt it too, you know? So he lifts up his feet and he's like, what is going on? I said, I don't know. It must be an earthquake. So, like, we're like running to the kids' rooms, because I'm like, if he feels it, it must be real. So, like, we're running to the kids' room, we're grabbing the kids, we're like sitting in doorways, right? So, you don't see the house shaking, right? But you
Mhm.
feel it, right? So that's why I was convinced. We were having an earthquake. And all of a sudden, the table we were sitting at flips over. The plates
Mhm.
flip over. Anything that's sitting on what little furniture we have, any little knickknacks, even like a bottle that was on the table, everything. It's not like an earthquake where everything's falling over because it's shaking. No, it's like someone is coming up and like just
Wow.
walking across the room and being like, let's flip this, let's flip that, let's flip this. I mean, like, that's what it looked like. And so now I'm thinking, okay, he feels it, I feel it. We feel like we're in an earthquake. Like what is this? Like what is this? So we leave. It finally stops, right? And we just look at everything that's broken. And he was like, pack a bag, we're leaving. He's like, we're not coming back. We are not coming back here. And I said, good. We didn't. We did not go back. We literally saw an older man in his yard, which was this house, and it looked empty. We were driving by because we were coming back to the old house to get some stuff. My
Mhm.
husband stopped and talked to him, and he spoke Spanish, and so they were talking, and like we moved in here on a handshake and a hug, and we've been here ever since. So yeah, I don't know what it was there. I honestly, I don't want to find out. I don't want to go back
Mhm.
there. I don't want to go
Mm-mm.
through it again. Yeah, but to this day, you see people move in, maybe 4 or 5 months, and they're out. And it sat there for like 2 years by itself. Well, see, after we moved out, we didn't anticipate finding this house. Like it was
Mhm.
like divine intervention because I don't have good credit. You know, he's an immigrant. Like even though like he's legal, you know, people look down on that. They don't want to. You know, they don't give you a chance, unfortunately.
Yeah, no,
So
they
we
don't.
were really excited. It was very serendipitous how we found this house just by like there's a hibiscus bush in the front yard and I'm like, oh, like those flowers are so pretty. Like my great grandma had a bush, like a hibiscus bush like that. And I was like, oh, I love it. So we stopped just to take a picture of the flowers. And he was out here fixing, like doing yard work. And then we started talking. So,
Mhm.
and then we ended up living here. So it's very serendipitous. But um, we have seen people flee the home. Like in the middle of the night, you'll hear screaming, and you look out, and they're like running from that house and like squealing off in a car. Um, the person that owned it when we lived there no longer owns it. They sold it. That
Mhm.
person stayed for maybe a year, and then they moved out. And so, but like there's every family that moves into that house, there's a lot of yelling, there's a lot of
Mhm.
screaming. So my psychic friend now, since I told her, you know, about how like I was telling you the story and how this part of the story was coming up in this episode, she
Mhm.
goes, she goes, we should see if we can go back in that house and I'll do a reading. And I said, you can go do that by yourself and then just let me know how it goes. Because honestly, I'm not saying that house and that experience was scarier than when my eldest son had his experience. Obviously, that
Mhm.
was scary because people were physically getting hurt. My son was physically getting hurt. That
Right.
was scary. But this was like a different scary, not a different level, just a different scary,
Mhm.
you know? Like, but for some reason, like, I knew that if we left, it would stay at that house. Like I knew it wouldn't
Right.
follow us. Like you could just tell it was connected to that house. Like, okay. I to put it like loosely, it's kind of like have you ever seen that kid movie called Monster House?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like that. Nobody come near me. Nobody touch me.
Mhm.
Like if you were to give a life to this house, like that's how I imagine it would be. Don't touch my lawn. Don't like that is how this house feels. Like they've
Mhm.
renovated it. they renovated it, and it looked like it's finished, but it looks like there's a little bit that's unfinished. But whoever was working on it left and never came back. Makes me curious as to why those people don't come back. But yeah, but thankfully, nothing bad's happened here. Like I said, we've lived here peacefully for 8 years. We're actually buying it.
Mm.
Um, but like I said, it feels like a grandma. It feels like a granny. But
Mhm.
our landlord, and God bless him, I think he's here too. He passed away a few years ago. He was an older man. He was in his late 70s, and this was his grandma's house.
Mhm.
So he grew up here, his dad grew up here, and we're the only people besides family, immediate family, who've lived here.
Mhm.
They invite us for the holidays because we love this house, and we were just so grateful that this gentleman like took a chance on us. And so I think he comes and sees me
Mhm.
sometimes, you know, because I'm like, I love your house and I take care of it. And so the whatever is here is very loving, it's very comforting. And so I think that's why we've lived here so long. And uh you know, it's just been great. But yeah, so my son still can give readings. My son can still look at you, scan your soul, and tell you
Mhm.
things you never told a single other person in your whole life. He doesn't but he's also learned how to like shut it off.
Right.
Like so he can handle, you know, day-to-day life. Something this empath wish she could learn, but I'm getting better at it. Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Pardon me. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So
So, wow. Definitely a very interesting journey.
yeah.
Um,
I'm
yeah.
so sorry. I feel like I totally like took over and didn't even let you talk. I'm so
No,
sorry.
that's fine. That's fine. The being able to get um, some kind of closure to the story is always a good thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the the overall, is that now you're living in a place and a time uh, that is your own, so to say, without all that negative stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Oh yeah. Like yeah.
Yeah,
It's nice. It's very nice. It's like I've
no
been through
doubt.
enough.
Right.
It's about time. Like listen, I'm old now. I'm 41. I have gray hair. I live in pajamas. I want to watch Murder She Wrote at 7 and go to bed at 8. Okay? Like that would be like that's a perfect life for me.
Right.
So maybe the
Right.
granny spirit here just vibes with my vibe. I don't know.
Probably.
Maybe she's all
Probably.
about it. I don't know. But no, it's nice. It's nice to finally it's finally to have peace, but also um like living here in this environment with whoever is here, um, you know, who I love and who I'm, you know, I very respectfully share this home with. Um, it's just taught me not to be afraid of,
Hmm.
you know, the like, you know, the entities, paranormal, you know, whatever you want to call it. Because well, just like I, you know, mentioned before, it's not a black and white situation. They are just like people. Some are nice, some are not.
Right.
Some, you know, some can be nice but don't want you to stay in their house. Some can be, you know, mean but don't care if you stay in their house. You know, like it's just they're just like, you know, like how we are here on this plane, you know.
Hmm.
And you know, in a lot of these spirits, I mean, like they hold hurt, they hold anger, they hold pain. You know, but they can hold joy, they can hold like I really think whoever is here holds a joy and love because of so many memories and so many beautiful things that probably happened in this home. So many firsts, so many lasts, you know, for a
Right.
home like this to be like, you know, owned multi this cat multi you know generationally Um, uh, I'm sure, she carries love and joy, from this home, which makes it very lovely to live here. And so yeah. So yeah, but it's nice to finally have peace and yeah.
And some sanity along with it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So as we kind of round it out and uh, bask in uh, the idea of peaceful closure to the story, what are your final thoughts on your experience overall?
Well, I mean, was it hard and was it stressful? Yes. Especially with my son's haunting. It was traumatic. But it in a way it really helped me realize who I am and what kind of power that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And like in my psychic ability and my, or like, I don't really like to say that. I don't think I'm a psychic. I think I'm just good at connecting with certain people and certain things for some reason. Um, my grandma used to call me a memory catcher because I explained like I get very vivid memories, but I know they don't belong to me. And then if I start talking about them, usually the person in the room, hey, like that happened to me when I was 4 years old, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I know like you broke your arm and got a green cast, and like things like that. So I don't, I really don't think if like the whole thing, like my oldest son being born, having like the NDE, near death experience and all that, like in a way I'm kind of grateful for it because it opened me
Mm-hmm.
up to new ideas of thinking. It helped me realize what kind of like woman and I guess clairvoyant. I mean, not clairvoyant. I don't know what you call me, psychic or whatever. Um, that power, that power that I hold, and um, and also like to new ideas. And then like I deep dived into research of what was happening. And and like my friend who's a psychic, like she's helped other people, and I've fortunately have been able to connect her with people who need help.
Oh yeah.
Because that was the scary part, is like there's no one to help you, like there's no one to
Exactly.
really help you and support you, especially back then. But I'm glad to see that now we live in a time where people are more open and are more willing to take a chance and learn about new things, and maybe open up their minds a little bit of, realizing, hey, like, these other things are happening. And there's actually, like facts to back it up, and stuff like that. And so, I mean, even though it was hard, like I can't say, I regret it happening to us. Like, I mean, it helped shape me. It
Mm-hmm.
helped shape me, especially like as a witch, especially in my power. And I mean, this was like I had to put my big girl witch panties on and fight something that was like hurting my family, and like standing my own
Right.
ground. And I've always been like a quiet, passive type of person, and so that kind of helped bring that out in me. And so there's definitely positives and negatives to take away. um but it, I mean, it helped open me up to a whole new world, and I'm glad it did because I met some amazing people in this
Definitely.
world, like including you, because like, ooh, shout out Magical Journey, like woo woo. But I would like to say, for anyone like who's having a problem with something like this and you feel like there's no one to talk to or anything like that, there is. There's a lot of support groups now,
Definitely.
and there's a lot of people who are able to help. Like, don't be ashamed of it. Like, don't feel like you're going crazy. because whatever the problem is, it just takes, not giving up to finding the solution and finding the answers, no matter what it ends up being. And so, hang in there, really. I mean, you're not alone, even though it feels like you might be, like you're definitely not. And this actually happens to a lot more people, than you would think.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I really appreciate getting the opportunity to walk through this with you. I'm going to go on and close this out. If you'll hold on just a little bit
Oh yeah,
backstage.
sure. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to share my story with you, and to do this. This has been so much fun, and I really hope I can come
Definitely.
back, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
we can
Because
talk about whatever you want. I would open book
absolutely,
for you, my friend. It has been such a
absolutely.
blast.
It has been. It has been. I appreciate you sharing with me. All right. I will bring you back in just a bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. I gotta tell you, as far as having an experience like this, yeah, I agree. If you are having a experience like this or even similar to it, definitely reach out to people for help and guidance and advice. There are answers. Uh, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you joining us for part two of this incredible journey that Lyria was on. And uh, as always, you know, continue to smile, and your journey may it always be magical.